Hey everybody, it's Piano Man Steve Lungrin, founder of LearningMusicIsFun.com, where we teach piano players how to play rock, pop, and country music. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of my video blog. The topic today is going to be weighted keys versus non-weighted keys, and 88 keys versus like 61 keys or 76 keys. A lot of people ask about this with their gear that they're trying to buy. These are my opinions. I am not necessarily telling you that this is the final word on them, but they are my opinions. A lot of you might notice that my lesson and tutorial videos are filmed on a 76 key non-weighted key keyboard. That's not necessarily because I prefer them or anything like that. It really is as simple as my 88 key weighted is in my living room, which it serves a wonderful function there because it's like having a piano in the house, and it's a big heavy thing on a special stand. It's not a clavinova, but it kind of looks like an upright clavinova kind of, and it just functions really well out there. That's where I sit down if I'm having family over for a holiday or something and we do a sing-along, or if I'm going to play something for my wife, or just if I'm fidgeting around the house and I want to play something. That's where I go, and I like to have something out there, and that's the one that serves it best. It actually has built-in speakers. I mean, I can run it through a system too, but it's got its own speakers, so I don't have to have a sound system set up with it. So that's where it's set up. And that's not a very good place for me to film, so in my studio I have this. This is my Roland Phantom, which has been with me now for, holy cow, 12 years, but it's still an awesome instrument. This is where I can do all my recordings, where I put my backing tracks together for my live gigs, and it's just my kind of my workstation, and I've got it connected to, can't really see it in the frame, but right here is my digital recording hard drive recorder, my digital hard disk recorder. It's a Yamaha AW16G. So I've got it connected to that, and then I've got a couple of monitors on the floor that all the sound comes out of, and so I've got a little workstation in here, which is great, and this is just a smart place for me to do my filming because it's not getting in the way of all of my, my wife and my pets and all of that stuff and just interrupting the flow. So that's why I do it on this. I do it on this for that reason. Now, what do I gig on? Well, to tell you the truth, most of the time when I gig, I use a 76 key non-weighted key keyboard. Why is that? Well, for one thing, I own it. It's my old Elisa's Quadrasynth, but I'm used to it, and it's really light, and it fits in a lightweight case, and it's easy to take with me to different stuff. So one could draw the conclusion that I favor non-weighted keys and that I favor short keyboards. I don't. I'm fine with pretty much whatever you throw at me. But I'll tell you that when you are playing live a lot, here's some pros and cons. When you get weighted keys, I promise you that the keyboard is going to automatically be substantially heavier. Okay, substantially heavier. If you get 88 keys, I can promise you it is going to be a bitch, pardon my French, to find a case that you can put it in. And they're very expensive. Now, is it great to have the extra keys? Yes. Are they making great instruments with great patches and such? Yes. But they're a pain. They really are a pain. And if you don't have a van or a truck or something to put that in, you're going to have problems, because I have not yet seen an 88 key instrument that will sit in the back seat of a sedan across. They're just about 5 inches too long, especially when you get them in a case. So that became a problem for me. I have a van now, but I gigged for a long time when all I had was a sedan, and I had to figure out how to get PA equipment and a keyboard and cables and all that good stuff, suitcase full of cables and tip jar and all that, in a, let me see, for a long time it was a 2000 Honda Accord that I had to get it between the trunk and the back seat. So it was almost necessary for me to use a 76 key keyboard. And there are 76 key weighted key keyboards that you can find. I just happen to really like the group of patches that are on this. It's got a good punchy piano sound that I like. It's not this. I try to leave this guy in the studio, but the one that I gig with, it's got a nice punchy piano sound. It's got a pretty good Hammond B3 organ sound on it that I can use the modulation knob and get a little bit of a Leslie sound coming through it. It's got really good electric piano sounds, and it's got like the Van Halen Jump 80s, I can't remember what they call those things, but that great 80s sound. So it's got a lot of good patches for what I do. And so I'm just comfortable using it. It doesn't have weighted keys. A lot of the weighted key keyboards that I found with 76 keys are, they have great piano sounds, but then they're very limited and they don't have a lot to offer in anything else. The other thing about it is I like something that's got a really, really accessible, what I would call the transposer. I want the transposition function to be really easy to access for live gigs, because there's a lot of stuff that, you know, it was recorded in C and my voice just isn't quite high enough to do it in that key and do it well. And B flat, I could easily play it in B flat, but it's just a hair too low to have the intensity on the high notes that I want. So really a half step. So you go from the key of C to the key of B. Can I play it? Yes. But good heavens, do I play it as well? No, because there's a big difference between playing in the key of C with no sharps and flats and playing in B with 5 sharps. And especially for soloing and licks and whatnot. I'm very proficient in all of my different soloing scales, and I've got a large catalog of licks and fills I can use in the key of C. They don't easily translate to the key of B. So I need that transposition function handy so that I can put the songs down a half step. The same is true, a lot of times it'll be in the key of G and I'll want to play it in F sharp, or in the key of F and I'll want to play it in E, and it's just, you know, it's a little bit lazy. I certainly could just play it in the other key, but it's just easier and I play them better. And what I care most about is giving the audience a really good experience. I don't really care about the ego trip of saying, oh my God, you know, I can play it in whatever key, whatever. I'm there for the audience, and I've got to make a living, so I want to give them a really good experience so that they tip me and whatnot, and so that I get rehired. So I don't care so much about, you know, the badge of honor that I played it in F sharp. They don't know it, they don't care. I want it, but I want it to be easy. So those things factor in for me more so than whether it's weighted keys or non-weighted keys. So let's just talk about weighted versus non-weighted for a second. Certainly proper piano technique, like if you're really, really into getting perfect technique down, that will be supported by weighted keys, more so than on non-weighted keys. But I also have to tell you that an awful lot of people who were classically trained and are brilliant piano players go into bands where their job is to just play, you know, strings and whatnot, and they'll stack 2 or 3 things like this up on different levels, and they can play very easily on non-weighted key instruments. And so I think that it's sort of lazy to say that you can't play well using non-weighted keys. If you want to haul the extra weight around, or maybe you're just going to be stationary, that's fine. If you want weighted keys, that's great. Because I will tell you that one of the perils of using non-weighted keys primarily is that when you switch over and play weighted keys again, your fingers, it's going to make them a little sore, because they're not used to working that hard. They're not used to having that weight to actually press down on. So, you know, I won't lie to you that I play this kind of thing more often than I play weighted keys. And on the occasions when I take my big Baldwin Pianoville, which is my 88 key weighted out, you know, at the end of the night, I'll have my fingers will be downright sore at the end of the day, the joints and whatnot, because they are not used to working quite as hard. I sound fine on it, but they're not used to working that hard. So that is something that will happen to you if you spend a lot of time playing on these. But I can tell you too, anyone who says you can't play well and you can't sound good on non-weighted keys, they're full of crap. What they don't know is that if you practice on them long enough, you'll get comfortable, okay? I can sit down with this and play just as well as I can on weighted and make it sound just as full. You know, it's not because there's anything special about me, it's because I've played enough on these that I'm comfortable. When I first switched over from playing on acoustic pianos, which is what I grew up playing, okay? I want to make that clear. I was an acoustic piano kid. We had a piano in the house. That's what I learned on. It's what I did all my gigs on for the first, I don't know, 5 years, because most of the gigs I got when I was a young teenager, from say the age of 12 up to 17 or 18, because I was not doing clubs yet. I was doing background music at like cocktail hours for conventions. That's what was available to me. And most of those places would have an acoustic piano they could roll out and I'd play on. And so that's what I was used to. I was used to playing acoustic pianos, and I was sloppy as hell when I first started playing on what is now my Alesis Quadrasynth, which I got a long time ago, back in about 95, but it's still going. It's like the Energizer Bunny, and I've just got such an affection for it, I can't let go. But anyway, when I started playing on that, I was so sloppy, I was almost embarrassed, because I wasn't used to the action on the keys. It takes time. It takes time to get comfortable with what you're playing on. So I guess my recommendation is not really in favor of one or the other. I think you need to choose what feels right to you. I think that, you know, the purists in our industry here, the purists in my industry, the piano industry and the teaching industry, would tell you definitely a piano is meant to have weighted action and it's meant to have 88 keys. Hey, you know, and hammer action, like simulating an acoustic piano. I'm fine with that. You know, I don't necessarily even disagree with them. That is what a piano is designed for, but that's not what an organ's designed for. It's not what an electric piano ever really felt like. I mean, they had hammer actions, but they didn't feel the same as acoustic pianos. It's not what a lot of things were designed for. And anymore, if you're going to play live, when you buy one of these, you're not just buying the piano sound, you're buying a collection of about 1,000 sounds. So is it fine? You can do them all on weighted keys, sure. But for me, I have just found it easier to stick with non-weighted for the most part on my gigging anyway, and playing live, just because it's lighter. It's easier on my fingers, honestly. Where I play 100 dates a year, and I play for usually between 3 and 4 hours solid without a break. You know, you really beat the piss out of your hands when you're doing that. So for me, I've actually liked not having the weighted keys for that. It's just, it puts a little less wear and tear on my hands and my wrists that way. But could I do it with weighted keys? Sure. And within a very short period of time of doing it regularly, my fingers would adjust. So, you know, when I'm finally ready to upgrade my Quadrasynth and put it out to pasture, but you know, sorry, it's over there. It doesn't like when I talk about it. Just a second. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not gonna do that anytime soon. It's got serious like anxiety about that. But someday when that happens, I'll probably replace it with a 76 key stage piano with weighted keys and go after something with a killer piano patch. But, you know, in the meantime, I'm really happy with it. So I guess the point of this blog is to say it's great to have 88 keys weighted if you want to. They're more expensive, they're harder to transport, they're heavier, they're harder to find cases for. The cases are more expensive, and they don't fit in cars very well. I mean, so there are some disadvantages to that. But it is more like playing on an acoustic piano. And if that's important to you, then that's what you should do. Okay? I'm not telling you you shouldn't. But to get the ones that really feel like an acoustic piano, you're going to have to spend at least a couple $1,000s, and the best ones usually cost around $3 or $4. So, you know, $500 weighted keyboards that are 88 keys and all of that. There's probably a few good ones out there, but usually they're not really so hot anyway, and they're not much different from playing spring-loaded like this. So I guess that's my sense. If it's important to you to recreate an acoustic piano, then do it, okay? But for me, I have enough other uses. It's primarily going to be a piano for me, but I like having the organs and the you know, the 80s synthesizers and the string parts, and I play drum parts on here and bass and all that other stuff for my you know, tracks and whatnot. And I just actually find it easier to work on spring-loaded keys. I've become very accurate on them and very clean on them because I'm used to playing them. That's the real key. You'll get used to whatever you play on as long as you play on it long enough. Now, 61 keys, those really, really short ones, if I had to, I could probably do an evening on one of those. I don't like them. There's too many octaves missing. I can't get a big fat left-hand bass sound because I like to play a lot of octaves. And I like my glissandos to start high. And that's about the lowest I can stand to have it. So I don't care much for 61 keys personally, but could you learn how to play a lot of stuff with a 61 key? You betcha. Could that be a starter keyboard for you that really helps you understand a lot of things? You betcha. There's no reason why that can't be a useful instrument to you. But if you can go with at least 76, this gives you a lot more range, and then you have the added advantage with 76, you can put it in the back of your car. So those are just some thoughts. I don't really think at the end of the day, especially for recreational players, that it matters that much. You know, and then when you're talking about professional players like me who make their living off of it, I think there's a lot more to consider than just how good does it recreate an acoustic piano, because, you know, I've got logistical concerns to factor into the thing. How easy is it to transport? What does it cost me? If something breaks on it and I have to replace it, how much am I going to have to cough up? Because that's, you know, that's a real concern. When you take your gear out on the job, it's going to be exposed to the elements, and it's, you know, it's in more danger of being, you know, hurt or knocked over or scratched or whatever than if it's not, if it's just sitting at home. So I got to worry about that. I've got to worry about, does it have all the patches that I need? Does it feel good? Is it putting too much wear and tear on my hands? All kinds of other things go into the equation besides just, does it feel like a piano or not? You know? But if you're a recreational player, that might not be the case. If all you're going to do is play at home for your own enjoyment, which is a perfectly valid reason to learn the piano, I might add, it's what most people who learn the piano do it for, then maybe all you care about is recreating the feel of a piano. So go for it. I'm all for it, you know, but don't think that you have to do that in order for it to sound good and in order for you to start playing well. What you need is practice, whether you're playing on weighted keys or spring-loaded keys. And whichever one you've got the most experience with is what you're going to sound the best on at any given time. I probably don't sound as clean on weighted keys as I do on spring-loaded keys these days because I've been doing this for over a decade pretty hard. But, you know, there was a time when it would have been exactly the opposite. And maybe there will be a time when it's exactly the opposite again, because I might just, you know, change my taste and change my schedule. You know, as my online business grows, I enjoy playing live, but I might very well scale back the number of dates that I play live every year and just focus on this. And if I do, then at some point I might reinvest in a different kind of an instrument based on those needs as opposed to, you know, my live performance needs. So, but whatever it is, you're going to sound best on whatever you've got the most practice and experience on. So, yeah, I hope that I serve as living proof since I do all of this. I get a lot of I get a lot of comments on YouTube from people who are like, "Why are you teaching on that like short and spring-loaded key thing? I can't believe that you're a piano teacher and you're using that as your instrument." Why not? It gets the job done. It has not yet been a problem for me. I don't get it, you know. And going out and playing for the layperson, they don't really notice the difference between this or a different piano sound as long as it sounds like a piano. You know, these are what counts. This is 90% of the job right here. This is only 10%. So, you know, get the one that you want, but don't think that that's really the determining factor. It amazes me as human beings how often we try to attack. There's always something. We look at a problem that we're facing, and there's always like one obvious thing that's 90% of the problem, and we leave that the way it is because it feels like it would be too hard to address it, because it usually is a lot of work. You know, it's where we would get all the benefit, but it's usually a lot of work and time consuming. But then there's this other thing that represents about 10% of the problem, and so we readily like go on a, you know, on a revolving door of swapping out different ideas for this 10%, and then we're disappointed because the problem never seems to get any better. Well, of course not, because 90% of it you're not doing anything about, and 10% of it you're trying to solve the 90% for. It ain't gonna happen. So, you know, work on your hands, work on your fingers, learn the right notes, and practice. That's where you're going to become a good player, and that's where it's going to sound good. The keyboard you're using is a secondary concern. So I like using this. Like I say, I have pretty, I'm certainly not using it for any other reason than this is the convenient one for me to film on. But I have no problem using it. I've used this one live a lot in the past. I used one just like it live in terms of 76 keys, non-weighted. Doesn't give me any trouble. And I do an awful lot of my shows without tracks. I mean, a good portion of every show I do, you know, 10 to 20% of the music, I won't use tracks, and it'll just be me and the keyboard. And I'll just play a song, me and a piano vocal. And no one ever, ever, ever has come up to me and said, you know, it would be so much more effective if you got a better piano. People don't. It's fine. If I played it like shit, pardon my French, then they might say that. But that's because I played it bad, not because I was using a bad keyboard. So there you go. Those are my opinions. Again, I have no doubt that at some point, as this gets more views on YouTube or wherever, that the piano purists out there are going to eviscerate me in the comments, but that's okay. I don't care. They've never liked me because I'm not a purist. I'm expedient, and I always have been. I like to be efficient, and I like to hone all of my efforts into what I think is actually going to make the most difference at the end of the day in how it sounds. Because how it sounds is what makes it fun for me as I master a song or whatever. And that ain't about the piano or the keyboard that I'm using. Oh, and by the way, keyboards versus acoustic pianos really quickly. I have a real special place in my heart for acoustic pianos, but I actually prefer playing on keyboards and synthesizers and clavinovas and things for a couple reasons. One, because they're always in tune, for one thing. You never ever are going to have that problem where you got to have it tuned, and then right after that the humidity changes, or you move it a little bit and it falls out of tune. The keys don't start to stick and have all those kinds of problems. That drives me crazy every time I play an acoustic piano anymore, is the imperfection of the keys. And the other thing too is you get a balanced sound. And again, where I play live a lot, it's really important to me to be able to amplify it. And I stick a cable into this port right back here, and every single one of these notes, every one of them is amplified with a decent range and balance. Whereas if you stick a mic in the piano, then some of the notes are going to come out really strong because they're really close to the mic, and some of them are, the strings are way off over to the side, and it doesn't amplify that well. It's not as clean. So I actually prefer these. I've gotten spoiled by that stuff, and so not that I don't enjoy the chance to play a nice acoustic piano from time to time, but I'm pretty much a fan, and I probably am not going back. When I'm ready to buy a big, like, baby grand or something, it'll probably be a baby grand clavinova rather than a baby grand piano. But that's just me, you know. That's just my preferences. It doesn't have to be what's right or wrong. It's just me. And this is my video blog, so I'm sharing my opinions. Okay, I think I have pontificated long enough, but I've had some people asking questions about this, the pros and cons. The truth of the matter is, if you practice enough on any given instrument, you can sound good on it. So pick the style that feels best to you, but you do not need weighted keys to sound good. You need practice. Pure and simple. So that's my shtick, and I'm going to stick with that story. I'm sure that there's a lot of purists out there who could make a very good argument that contradicts mine, and I would welcome them to start their own video blog and put their point of view up, because I think you need to hear a lot of information from a lot of different sources to make up your own mind about what's best. But my own opinion is, you don't need 88 keys and you don't need weighted keys. They're great. Do it if you want it, but that's not going to be the deciding factor in your playing. Your practice time, working out this right here. This is where you learn to become this is where you become a good player. This is where it starts to sound good. I can entertain people on any keyboard you throw in front of me because I've put in the practice. Do I have some that I like the sound of better? Yeah. But I don't need any particular keyboard in order to make it sound decent, because that's not about the instrument. So I hope that gives you a little bit of food for thought, and of course I would invite you to leave comments and let's have a dialogue if you have more questions about it. I love getting your questions in the comments, because one I can answer it and the entire community can see it that way, but two, that usually tells me what the next video needs to be. And again, I told you, I'm efficient, so I like it when you tell me what to film next. Okay guys, I'm Piano Man Steve Lungrin. Thanks for tuning in, and I would just like to remind you on my way out here that if you're not having fun when you're making music, you're doing it wrong. I'll see you later.